I don't know if you mix on headphones, but if you do, you're going to enjoy this one, because I'm going to compare the SoundID Reference for headphones by Sonarworks with the Waves NX Studio Collection. Both are great tools when it comes to mix on headphones, but the question is, which one should you choose? Hey, what's going on, my friend? Chris Salim here from Mixdown Online. Very excited to share this video with you because I'm comparing two great tools when it comes to mixing on headphones. I know that a lot of you do mix on headphones or have like questions regarding those types of tools that we have access to increase our headphone mixing experience. And this is what I want to look into in today's video. So we're first going to look at SoundID Reference by Sonarworks, which is a room correction software. Now, I reviewed the SoundID software on a few videos back, which I'm going to link down below. But this time around, I'm looking at the headphone edition of SoundID Reference, which works very well. And then we're going to look at the Waves NX Studio Collection, which is another amazing tool when mixing on headphones. I actually know these tools pretty well because I use them in the studio on a regular basis. Now, they are both very different from each other and serve different purposes. One is more of an EQ correction plugin, and the other one has to do with room emulation. So I'll give you my impressions when it comes to work with one or the other, and also if it's a good idea to work with them at the same time. So stay tuned. Okay, let's first look at the SoundID Reference for headphones. I already covered SoundID Reference for room correction. The link is down below if you want to watch this video. But now we're going to focus on the headphone edition. So SoundID Reference can be added straight in your DAW as a plugin and also on your operating system, whether you're working with Windows or Mac. But we are going to focus on the plugin within Cubase. Very important when you insert these types of plugins, whether it's a SoundID Reference or the Waves NX Studio Collection, you have to make sure you insert these plugins as the last plugin out of your master channel. But don't forget to bypass these plugins before you bounce your mix, or else you're going to be stuck with the effect that the plugin is producing. But if you're using Cubase Pro, I'm going to encourage you to use the control room and insert this plugin, and also same for the NX Studio Collection, straight in the insert section of the control room. So this way, even if you bounce your mix, those plugins are reference plugins only, and they are not going to affect the file that is bouncing out of Cubase Pro. Okay, so it's only for monitoring, which is quite cool. So you don't need to think about bypassing the plugin afterwards before you bounce a mix. And this is exactly what I am doing here. So I have SoundID Reference straight on the control room in Cubase, and this is what I get. So SoundID Reference for headphones is a calibration plugin that will calibrate the frequency response of a pair of headphones. Now, there's a bunch of supported headphones that you can get from SoundID Reference. So let's take a quick look. If I click on Add New Preset and select your calibration profile and click on Add Headphones, and there you go. I have a bunch of different manufacturers and models also. So if I click on, let's go and look for Austrian audio, okay? Now I have a list of 4 Austrian audio headphone models that I can get the profile from. So this is what I did on my side with the headphones I own. So I have the Audio Technica ATH M50, which is this one, which are very good for recording. And I'll tell you what I do with these after. So I have a profile for this pair of headphones. Same for the HD650, and more about these later. And the HiX65 that I also reviewed months ago. And the MDR 7506, the well-known Sonys, okay, that I kind of don't like much. But there's a profile with Sonarworks if you happen to work with one of these. Okay, so the way that works, if we look at the MDR 7506 profile, for example, I'm just going to click on top and just click on the before curve. So this is exactly what we have as far as the frequency curve goes for the Sony 7506. So the middle line here is the average frequency range that we have with these headphones, because all of these headphones will not necessarily have the same frequency curve, like 100% the same from one pair of headphone to the other. They might have like differences, like slight differences between one headphone to the other, even if it's the same model. And same for the left and right side of the headphone. You know, the frequency response from one side might not be 100% the same as the one on the left. So that line represents the average frequency response of each of these headphones. Now, the cool thing with the HD 650 that I have here, these are open back headphones by Sennheiser, is that I have access to the left and right frequency range, like a very precise frequency range of these exact headphones. That's because Sonarworks offers a specific calibration, like a custom calibration for specific models. And the HD 650 is one of them. So Sonarworks were kind enough to send me a pair that comes with a profile that I loaded on the SoundID Reference plugin, which gives me the exact calibration, like EQ curve of these headphones. So that's why I don't have the average, but I have the exact frequency curve. So if I click on top and I click on the simulated after and the calibration, the green line will give me the calibration, what SoundID did. And the middle line, the pink line, is the frequency response after calibration. Okay, and this is what I get with these, which is quite nice. And that will also calibrate the left and right headphone as far as the frequency range goes, which is like a lot of precision. So this is what I get if I try this out. If I bypass the calibration, now that might sound a bit funny for you since you're not using the same exact headphones as I am right now, but it gives you an idea. Now the goal here is to give you a flat frequency response. You know, and this is actually pretty cool to mix with, especially with these. I kind of like the HD 650. On their own, they sound good, but by using them with SoundID Reference, honestly, that brings these headphones to the next level. So this is a pair of headphones that I like to work with using SoundID Reference. Same for the Sony, the 7506, that I'm actually not a fan of to begin with. But if I was to mix with these, I would definitely use SoundID. They sound way better by applying the flat calibration that SoundID offers. And same for these M50X. They do sound very good with the calibration applied. Now, the one headphones that I don't use much with SoundID are the Hi-X65. Reason is very simple. I'm used to them as they are. You know, the way they sound naturally is the way I like them. You know, so that is a personal choice. So even if I'm not getting a flat, like a 100% flat EQ response out of these, I do think they sound amazing as they are for my taste anyways. And by the way, no pair of headphones is 100% flat, okay? So for some headphones, that might be a good thing. For other headphones, a tool like SoundID will help a lot. And same for my Verum 1. Now, there's no Verum 1 profile with SoundID. And even if there was, I'm so used to the way they sound that I'm good to mix with them without any type of EQ calibration. But I definitely like working with SoundID Reference with the HD 650 that I think sound way better with SoundID. Now, something else that is pretty cool that we have here with SoundID Reference, and I talked about that on my other SoundID video, is the translation check, which is going to give you access to different environments to monitor your mix with, which is quite cool. So in-ear headphones, a laptop, a smartphone, the studio speakers, like NS10s, they call it NS11, but they are actually NS10s, or mixed tubes. So you can actually use these types of different environments to listen through your headphones, you know, if you want to check your mixes on different types of systems, I must say. And that could be a very cool tool to work with, even if you mix on headphones. So this is basically what you get with SoundID Reference. Amazing tool for headphone frequency curve calibration. So if you're looking to get the most flat EQ response possible out of a pair of headphones, this is the way to go, SoundID Reference. Now let's look at the NX Studio Collection plugins. Now when we mix on headphones, something that we need to consider is that we get full separation from left to right that we don't get when we mix on studio monitors. And also the fact that we get fully isolated from the room itself. And that shows a lot when we mix on headphones, which is not bad, which is okay, but also has some downsides. For example, the stereo image, since the left and right side of the headphone are like fully separated, we don't have a natural stereo image that we get when mixing on headphones, where we get a cross-bleed stereo image, meaning that the left ear is going to hear what's coming out of the right speaker, you know, and vice versa, in a very natural way. That we don't get when mixing on headphones. Since we get the room out of the equation, there's a tendency on adding a bit too much effects, like again reverbs and delays when mixing on headphones. So we really need to compensate for that, you know, since we're losing the actual room space we are mixing into. Even if our studio is well treated and essentially dead, you know, it's never 100% dead. You're still gonna get some room sound coming out of your room, which is normal, that you lose when mixing on headphones, okay? So this is something we need to compensate for when we mix on headphones. And this type of plugin is gonna be a huge help in that regard. So let's take a look. I'm gonna use the Audio-Technica, the M50X for this one, which are closed back headphones. And I'm gonna insert the Studio Racks, the Studio Rack plugin by Waves on the control room of Cubase Pro. And this is where I'm going to insert all the NX Studio plugins that I have access to. So from the original one to the Ocean Way Nashville, the CLA NX Studio, which is quite nice also, and the latest one, the Germano Studio New York, which is also a very good one. Now, the goal with these plugins is to bring you in an actual studio space when mixing on headphones, so you can get a more realistic vibe and feel. So let's try the CLA NX, okay? And what I'm gonna do here, since I have a tracker, and this is actually pretty cool, I have the NX head tracker that I put on the top of my headphone. Now this was provided by Waves. They actually sent me an NX head tracker for me to try out, but this is an optional device that you don't need to work with if you want to work with the NX Studio Collection plugins. But it's quite fun to work with, I have to say. And this will track your head while you are moving around. Okay, so it connects through Bluetooth on your computer, and it detects all the movements you're making with your head, which is quite nice. You can also use a webcam if you want to. Okay, so if you're not sure about getting that device, try it out on a webcam. It's not as efficient as using the tracking device, which adds a lot of precision compared to a webcam, but it's still workable and fun to work with also. So you can try this one out if you want to. So I have on this plugin, the CLA NX Studio, 3 sets of monitors I can listen to. The CLA 10, which is a pair of NS10s, plus the sub, the mains, and a boombox. So let's have a quick listen. Again, use some headphones if you want to have a good idea on how this sounds like. So if I turn my head from left to right, This is pretty cool, I have to say. It makes the experience way more natural. I kind of like that. Even without working with the tracking device, the sound that you get, that brings you in an actual space, which works very well. Let's try this again. Sounds very natural. You can add more ambience if you want to, or less room ambience. Those are the mains. And there you go, the boombox. That's pretty cool. So we have also a headphone EQ that we can activate, which is going to work with, some model of headphones, like the one that I have with me, the Audio-Technica ATH M50X, which again are closed back headphones. If I activate the EQ, that will add an EQ that will fit better with the room model that I'm working on. So it's not an EQ that will flat out the frequency curve like SoundID is going to do. It's not going to calibrate that in that way. Not the same purpose. So let's try it out. So it's going to make the headphones sound a bit more natural within that room. So it works pretty well. But again, there's not a lot of models available. But if you don't have a model listed, don't worry about it. Deactivate that and just work without the headphone EQ. It works perfectly fine. So now let's go and take a look at the Nashville Ocean Way. Pretty cool. Nice. And if we listen to the Germano, so we have 3 sets of studio monitors on this one also. The GA2, which is custom made by Germano Audio, and also the NS10s. The Exigi, I think you pronounce it, which are these big ones right here on top. That's so cool. Now, question is, which one should you get? The SoundID Reference plugin or the NX Studio plugins? Now, this is a personal choice. It depends on what you're looking for when mixing on headphones. Maybe you don't need any of them if you know your headphones pretty well and you're able to compensate for the loss of room when mixing on headphones. Some engineers will do it this way, no problem, because they know their headphones very, very well and they mixed thousands of songs on the same pair of headphones. Think of Andrew Sheps, for example. But that takes a lot of experience. But if you're looking for a flat frequency response out of your studio headphones, SoundID Reference is just amazing and does the job pretty well. But if you like the way your headphones sounds like you're used to them as they are, like some of my headphones, and you're only looking to stay in a very natural studio environment, now I'm gonna highly recommend to put your hands on the NX Studio plugins. part of the collection, or any one of them. That will do the job very well. On my side, I like to do both. I like to work with my headphones as they are and try to know them as they sound like. For some of them anyways, like my Verum 1 headphones and Austrian Audio Hi X65 that I kind of know pretty well as they are. But I do use them with the NX Studio plugins, you know, for some part of my mixing process when I mix on headphones. But if I mix on the road, let's say I'm mixing on a laptop in the public space, in a coffee shop, for example, I'm gonna reach for a closed back pair of headphones, like the M50X, for example, that I like to use with SoundID Reference to get a flat frequency response, but I also like the use of the NX Studio plugins to get into a live environment. So, can you use both of these plugins at the same time? This is what I do on my side. If I'm using these headphones, or even if I'm using the HD650 open back headphones, I'm gonna use both plugins at the same time. So I'm first gonna flat up the curve, the frequency response, with a M50, in my case, the M50 calibration profile, and then use the studio rack. So let's go with the Ocean Way. In that case, I'm not gonna use the headphone EQ from the NX plugin. I always add the reference SoundID plugin before the NX Studio plugin. Okay, so I correct the curve first and then I go into the room effect, you know, to get into that space. So you can definitely work with both of them together if this is something you like to do. I do it on my side and it works well. My mixes translate pretty well on other systems, and that's the most important thing. So this is the way I like to work, by using all of the above, basically. So let me know what you do on your side. Do you like to work with a plugin like SoundID Reference to flat out the frequency response of your headphones? Or you like to work with room emulation plugins like the NX Studio Collection plugin? Or you like to work with both like I do sometimes? So let me know in the comment section down below. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the links down below if you wanna know more about SoundID Reference Headphone Edition by Sonarworks or the Waves NX Studio Collection. Now, this is not a sponsored video, but the links are affiliate links, meaning that if you click on those links, you are also supporting the channel by no extra cost for you, which is quite cool. So check it out. Links again are down below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Until next time, take care and see you.